My name is Nicole, and I'm a member of the New South Wales Community Engagement Team from Mabel and a First Nations woman. I am honoured to have been asked to present our acknowledgement of country today to you all, and also in honour and reflection of today, an acknowledgement of International Women's Day. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. In additional acknowledgement and in honour of today, I would like to pay respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women everywhere, in particular reflecting upon their key role in keeping the histories, culture and traditions of the oldest living peoples alive and present in today's society, and playing an integral role in passing this knowledge on to the next generation. As part of International Women's Day, we acknowledge and encourage the celebration of all women everywhere, and respectfully acknowledge that this terminology carries a unique definition for each person, and for some, this may not be the right term for their journey and identity. We celebrate the inclusivity and diversity of women and womanhood, including women of colour, women from diverse social and economic, religious, cultural and family backgrounds, women with all ranges of abilities and disabilities, women of all sexual orientation, trans, intersex and gender non-conforming people. We celebrate those who came before us and paved the way, those who stand beside us now and fight for equality for women, and those who will come after us into the future we all dream of.
Thank you, Nicole. Hello all and welcome. My name is Marella and I am the Community Engagement Manager at Mabel, working across New South Wales. Thank you for joining the second session of the Coordinator Loop webinar series. Mabel and NDSP are really excited to be facilitating this important conversation about recovery coach role and how this sits in the NDIS landscape and complements the support coordination role. The Coordinator Loop webinar series is a passion project for both Mabel and NDSP. Support coordinators work hard to implement the NDIS, which is a really complex system to navigate. It's constantly evolving with limited training opportunities. So we want to support this as best as we can by running webinars with relevant information to support you in your roles. So how the session will run today. We have Carol from NDSP as our tech support. So please reach out to her if you need any support throughout the session. If you could please submit all your questions via the Q&A function. What we don't address in the session today, one good day, are happy to follow up post-session. So the session will run for an hour and a half, consisting of 1 hour presentation and 30 minutes allocated for Q&A. About 10 minutes after the session ends, you will receive a SurveyMonkey questionnaire and your responses will shape future Coordinator Loop sessions. So the more information we gather from you, it allows us to tailor the content to your needs. And for those wondering, you will all receive a copy of the slides from today, resources and guest speaker contact details, as well as the Coordinator Loop notes write-up. Really excited to see that we had hundreds of questions submitted from the coordinators across the country, and the consistent theme was recovery coaching. So we have asked the One Good Day team to join the session as the experts, and they have created this content in response to your request. So very excited to kick off the session. I would like to introduce the One Good Day team. Over to you.
G'day everyone. To start with, I want to echo Nicole's sentiments, and as a proud Yuin man, I would like to acknowledge that we also are fortunate to be presenting on land today, the custodians of which is the Boonwurrung and Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to acknowledge the elders past and present, as well as our leaders that are emerging, and welcome any other First Nations people here today. A general reminder that this land was, is, and will always be Aboriginal land, and that our sovereignty has never been ceded. G'day everyone, my name is Nick Bowditch. I am one of the recovery coaches, senior recovery coaches working at One Good Day. We are really stoked to be here today to share as much knowledge as we can about recovery coaching for you guys I also want to say thank you for all the questions that have been submitted. This content that we've put together and we'll be presenting today is very much based on those questions. So we should be able to get through a whole lot of what you have asked. If there is anything that we haven't done in the presentation, then we'll get to it hopefully in the Q&A section at the back as well. Joining me today is 3 other people from One Good Day. Firstly, Lisa Bleazby. Lisa is the Recovery Coach National Manager. She's my boss. She's going to be speaking soon, as well as the 2 other senior recovery coaches, Simon Evans, who is the recovery coach, the senior recovery coach for Victoria, and Farina Murray, who is the senior recovery coach for Queensland. I am the senior recovery coach for New South Wales. So the way we were going to run today Simon's going to speak first. Can you go to the next? Thanks, mate. Simon's going to speak on what we do, what recovery coaching is, what recovery coaches are, and how we support your clients who have a psychosocial disability to live their best life. Then Lisa's going to step in and she'll be talking a lot about the sort of the tin tacks of how the funding happens, how the NDIS supports both your clients and us to support your clients and how that works. Farina is going to then step in and she's going to be talking about how we work and who we work with and why we do this work. This is really important as well. And then the final part will be back to me, where I'm going to talk about trauma, how trauma informs our practice and how we deal with crisis situations with our clients as well. So there's a ton of content to get through. So I'm not going to bang on too long. I'm going to introduce now Simon Evans, who is the senior recovery coach with One Good Day for Victoria, and he's going to take it from here. So 1 second.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. As Nick mentioned to you guys, my name's Simon. I'm the Victorian Senior Recovery Coach here at One Good Day. And I will be going into a little bit about what we do. So for those of you that don't know, psychosocial recovery coaching is a funded support under the NDIS for people living with a psychosocial disability. A psychosocial disability is defined by the NDIS as a person who has been diagnosed with a chronic mental health condition that has a significant impact on their day-to-day life. We place great emphasis on building trust and strong working relationships with the people we support. We aim to identify and build on the individual's strengths and really empower them to set personal goals. There's many tools available to help facilitate this. We find the use of a RAP plan or a recovery action plan to be the most beneficial, which Lisa will be so kind to go into in more detail later on in today's presentation. It's important for recovery coaches to learn and explore the NDIS and guide their clients through the funding options and supports available to them through their plan. We understand that navigating NDIS can be pretty complex and difficult and obviously somewhat stressful at times. So we work really closely with the individual to explore services and supports that cater to their specific needs and goals. Our job doesn't stop there. We make a commitment to the individual to walk side by side with them through the process of exploring different support options from beginning to end, one good day at a time. Often, I think it might take multiple services to form a really cohesive care team that can implement certain strategies and work towards goals. It's really important for us to build those communities and, build networks of like-minded care teams and empower the individual to belong to that community. Generally speaking, a participant may receive about 100 hours of psychosocial recovery coaching funded each year, which works out to be approximately 2 hours per week. However, we do continue to see different variations of these allocated hours come through from as little as 30 all the way up to 200 hours per year. So it's different with every client. These hours are typically spent as a combination of behind the scenes admin tasks or face-to-face or telehealth coaching. We here at One Good Day believe in the importance of employing a workforce who have lived experience, which Nick looks forward to sharing with you in a little bit more detail, later on in today's presentation. Whilst we have found that lived experience is a really valuable asset when it comes to recovery coaching, as the quickest route to building rapport is through commonality, we do believe a healthy combination of lived and learnt experience does render the best outcomes for the people we support. The NDIS actually recommends that recovery coaches have a minimum certificate 4 in mental health or mental health peer work. Alternatively, similar training and or 2 years paid experience in supporting people with mental health challenges is desirable. Here at One Good Day, we have found that over 60% of our recovery coaches identify as having lived experience in mental health, in conjunction with a broad range of qualifications and expertise in other areas such as psychology, counselling, disability, social work, AOD, and other various community services as well. We believe that everybody has the possibility of recovery. We consider ourselves living proof of that. We really champion this belief in our clients to support them to embrace their own unique journey to wellness. We aim to identify what people's inherent strengths are. We motivate them to embrace these strengths, and we build on their capacity to live a rich and meaningful life. We also believe that the challenges of life demand a holistic approach in order to provide a comprehensive, strategic vision of what can be achieved. Much of the time, we've found that simply lending a friendly ear or being a sounding board or just simply, I guess, encouraging a healthy dose of self-determination can yield incredible results. Sometimes a little goes a long way, and for people living with mental ill health, just instilling this belief of recovery can be the catalyst for change. We also acknowledge the power of diversity and uniquity. We expect different and we strive to be different. We all come from various walks of life, and really that's what just makes us us. Simply acknowledging how valuable this is will clear the path and hopefully enable the individual to see themselves in a brand new light and put their trust in their recovery coach as well. We really strive to consider each individual in their full context. Mental health isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. Each person has their own unique story and their own timeline of recovery. We ensure we take each individual's characteristics and needs into account when both allocating a recovery coach and through the implementation of ongoing support, both with the individual and with the network of professionals that we engage with the client. We place a really high emphasis on recovery coaches being trauma-informed and also delivering trauma-informed practice. Much of the framework and the service delivery is based on the knowledge and understanding of how trauma affects people's lives and ultimately their service needs as well. Again, Nick's going to be so kind to explore this with you further in today's presentation. Building a strong recovery relationship. We aim to build trust in a non-judgmental, safe and reliable manner. We do provide unconditional regard, positive regard to the individual. We're not there to admonish, we're not there to judge or force opinions upon anybody. We simply there to empathise, acknowledge, accept and provide guidance. It's really important for recovery coaches to provide role clarity, both for the benefit of their client, but also for the benefit of themselves. Recovery coaches work so intimately with their clients and often they know a lot more about the individual than many other people in their life. It's really not uncommon to forget how easy the lines between friend and recovery coach can be blurred. It's important for recovery coaches to provide honesty and transparency to their clients. This could mean transparency around what is and what isn't available to them through their NDIS plan, or just setting boundaries at the start. We aim to provide a clear picture of what those boundaries look like. From the very start, we ensure that our compliance documents thoroughly state our commitments, our contactable hours, and our billing information. And we spend time with the client to support them in just understanding what our role and what our commitments are to them. It's important for our recovery coaches to congratulate their clients and join in on celebrating those little victories. We as humans all love some positive reassurance from time to time, and being acknowledged for our hard work. Simply playing that cheerleader role of sorts can really provide, I guess, a sense of motivation and determination to continue working towards goals. Whilst we always strive for one good day at a time, we do understand that life can throw up unexpected challenges when we least expect it. We support our clients to reframe what their days can look like and help them understand that not all days are good, but there is good in every day. We found it really advantageous to respectfully challenge any behaviours of concern. As mentioned, and as Nick will allude to later, our role is to meet the client where they are at in their journey and abstain from judgment or reprimand. It's important for recovery coaches to encourage their client to think outside the box and explore paths that maybe they haven't explored before or they're not quite comfortable with. It's important for our recovery coaches to note patterns of behaviour and build an understanding of what the immediate future looks like in certain situations. I guess recognising patterns, reframing and redirecting can be the support an individual needs to make it through their journey and look forward to the next day. Before I hand over to Lisa, I would like to share a story with all you guys. So this is Chris's story, and I think it really nicely reflects into how we see the person in their whole context and provide that positive regard for them. So yeah, so Chris is a 40-year-old man. He's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. The first time I met Chris, he presented anxious and was quite hesitant to communicate with me. He advised me that he was sick and he was labelled crazy. I sat with Chris for a while and spent time getting to know him just on a personal level. A couple of sessions went on and Chris started opening up to me about his schizophrenia and all the visual and auditory hallucinations that came with his diagnosis. Chris mentioned to me that although he had been told for years that he's unwell, he still had a belief deep inside him that what he was experiencing was real. Chris shared with me that he speaks to a grandmother-like spirit every day, whom he refers to as Nanny Power. Chris advised me that Nanny Power had guided him safely through times of distress, anxiety, and suicidal ideations. I spoke to Chris with a sense of genuine curiosity. Having worked through psychosis of my own in previous years, I felt that I could relate to some degree. I asked Chris if he was comfortable to share more information about Nanny Power, to which Chris obliged. I asked Chris what Nanny Power looked like, what her ethnicity was, how she communicated with him, and how often he gets the opportunity to speak with her. Chris informed me that Nanny Power was a shapeshifter. However, she was of South American descent and that she spoke to him daily with care, respect, and guidance. I told Chris that Nanny Power sounded like an amazing energy and that given the opportunity, I too would like to speak with her someday. Chris went silent, but had a wry smile on his face. After about 30 seconds, I politely asked Chris if I had offended him, to which he replied, "No, Simon, the opposite. People have been telling me for years that I'm crazy. I know I'm unwell, but I'm not crazy. You're the only person that's ever expressed genuine interest in what I experience." Nanny Power heard what she said, and she told me that she would also like to speak with you someday. I visited Chris the following week. Chris appeared much more relaxed, communicative, and happy to be sharing his time with me. We went for a long walk, grabbed a coffee, and Chris shared something with me that he hadn't shared with anyone else before. Chris opened up to me about his past trauma and how he experienced years of pain, abuse, and hatred from heterosexual males, which led him to where he is now. Chris told me that since connecting with Nanny Power, she has mentioned to him on numerous occasions that in order for him to have closure from the terrors of his past, he must make a meaningful connection with a heterosexual man and learn that he doesn't need to be afraid, distressed, or anxious anymore. She told him that this connection would help him let go of the overwhelming negative emotion that arises on a minute-by-minute basis for him. Chris shared with me after our last meeting that Nanny Power had visited him later that evening and said something profound to him. She told Chris, "This is the person I've been telling you about. This is the person to help you. Don't be afraid, don't be distressed, and don't be anxious. You will now be okay." Christopher smiled and thanked me, and I thank Christopher for sharing this and allowing me into his world. I'm now going to hand over to Lisa for the next part of our session. Lisa? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Simon. Hi all, I'm Lisa. I'm the National Manager for One Good Day. I'm going to talk about understanding the NDIS and the funding options and the different services and supports that we can use. Recovery coaching can be seen as holding a quite similar role as support coordinators. However, psychosocial recovery coaches are different from support coordinators in that they bring knowledge and skills in psychosocial recovery, mental health, and service navigation within the mental health system, as well as having lived and learned experience. Support coordination tends to not be as involved with the participants throughout the whole plan, mainly focusing on the setting up of supports and plan reviews, whereas recovery coaching does the same, but then goes on to have regular involvement and support throughout the duration of the plan, as well as addressing the mental health wellbeing. The NDIA generally will not fund both support coordination as well as recovery coaching in a participant's plan. However, it is the client's choice as to how this is structured. And I have seen cases where both supports have been included. However, these are few and far between. In the instances that there's funding for both a support coordinator as well as a recovery coach, it is important that regular contact from the start of the client's services is given and a clear idea as to who's responsible for what support is determined to ensure that a client's funding is used appropriately in this space. We want to avoid both the support coordinator and the recovery coach doing the same tasks for the client. It is important that a recovery coach builds and maintains a local network so that they can have great access to supports for their clients. As a team of recovery coaches, One Good Day shares the local network throughout the organisation so that information may be relevant and is known by all recovery coaches throughout the team. Most services have the potential to deliver other supports in various locations, so sharing with the team our great experiences help them when building their own networks. One Good Day uses a strengths-based approach in which part focuses on choice and control. Sorry, guys.
Hey guys, we use a strengths-based approach in which focuses on choice of control. The NDIS defines choice of control as a term used to give participants power over the pursuit of their personal goals and the planning, engagement, and delivery of supports. It's important to note that this means the participant has choice and control over where and by whom the supports and services they need are provided to them. An important part of recovery coaching is to help the clients to build autonomy and assertiveness to ask for and obtain the support that they need and not what everyone else thinks they need. An NDIS plan includes various funding for accessing different services. These include core funding for services such as personal care, social and community support workers, and things like home and garden services. The capacity section includes funding for allied health and professional supports like OT and psych. Recovery coaches like us will work with the participant to ensure that they have all the information to make an informed decision about the services they are requiring. What the client priority might be may not always be aligned to the plan goals or even our goals, especially since the goals can be broken down into smaller goals that are aimed at eventually obtaining the ultimate goal for the client as per their NDIS plan. The priorities for our participants may also vary from the goals on their NDIS plan. Recovery coaching is all about working with a participant at their pace and addressing their issues that are causing them to be unwell, rather than the other goals that may not be achievable due to their current space of health. It's important to recognise that while we are supporting participants to use their plan, We need to ensure this is done in a capacity building perspective. 1 second, back to Liz.
Okay, what's the Recovery Action Plan? This is also known as our RAP. I'll be referring to it as a RAP for the rest of my talk. Our RAP has been developed as an in-house format that is specifically for psychosocial disability and for One Good Day. A RAP is a wellness tool that anyone can use to get well, stay well, and make their life more the way they want it to be. We at One Good Day use this tool to support participants in achieving their life's goals and dreams. While doing this, we are also supporting them to improve their quality of life and personal recovery. A RAP is used in a few ways, including the opportunity to talk openly about strengths. By presenting this opportunity to clients, it allows them to make their strengths more real and not just in their heads. It's an amazing self-awareness strategy. Not all people can deal with addressing a whole goal at the beginning. It can be quite overwhelming. Therefore, it's important to understand where the client is at and to start at a level that they can deal with, making small steps of improvement as the client is able and willing. It is important to have specific and measurable goals so that you can track your progress and stay motivated. The RAP helps to assess your progress and to help you stay focused. By documenting your goals, it not only forces you to get clear on what exactly it is that you want to accomplish, but it also plays a part in motivating you to complete the tasks necessary for your success. The RAP allows the client to share their achievements with the recovery coach and to get excited about where they're headed and how close they are to obtaining their goal. By making reviews of goals and progress clear, this helps your client to build confidence. Once a client starts completing goals and reviewing the process it took them to do so, they'll start to feel good about themselves. And in turn, this will create self-respect and increase the client's personal value. Acknowledging the effort and small wins helps the client's motivation level, keep the client's motivation levels up and energizes momentum. This is important, especially if things start to stall. Celebrating the small wins and building back up the excitement can get the client back on track. Aiming high when the time is right and encouraging your client to challenge their goals in ways that they could not have done before can give your client a much better chance of actually getting there. Some insights that enable us to have effective care teams. Our coaches glean insights and clarify important information about preferences through our RAP processes. Our coaches then use this information to support a more cohesive and effective care team for the people we are supporting. It is extremely important that all of the services involved in the support and care of a participant are on the same page and are working towards the same goals. This is where a recovery coach can play a big part of arranging these meetings regularly and keeping communication open and often. An example of when an effective care team is needed is when a client is discharged from hospital. Not a lot of information is sent home with the participant. Therefore, it's important that contact has been established throughout the time the participant was admitted to ensure that the best support can be arranged once discharged. Sometimes this will include ensuring that they have somewhere safe to go, support, and a clear guide as to what will be happening. For this participant to embrace and make the most out of their recovery, they need to know that everyone is communicating and that everyone is working on the same goals for their best interests. I'll now be handing over to Farina for her part.
Thanks, Lisa. So my name's Farina and I'm Senior Recovery Coach based in Brisbane, Queensland. So today I'm going to be talking about who we do it for and why. I think one of the main things to talk about initially is who receives funding for psychosocial recovery coaching. Well, clearly eligibility and funding is determined by the National Disability Insurance Agency. Generally, a person who is a participant of the NDIS and has a primary psychosocial disability will be offered funding in their support coordination budget that they can use flexibly for recovery coaching, as long as it isn't specifically stated for support coordination. Likewise, if funding is included as a stated support for recovery coaching, then it must be used for this purpose. The NDIS defines psychosocial disability as a disability arising from a mental health condition. So this means that not all mental health diagnoses are considered a disability or eligible for NDIS support. The main things to remember are that a condition needs to be shown to be long-term with no effective medical treatment and with a significant impact on a person's ability to do things day to day, for which NDIS supports are considered the best form of support. So I guess an example of this is someone who, even when they are taking medication, might find engaging with other people or personal care tasks pretty tricky or overwhelming, and simply getting to the shops or organising a daily meal may not be consistently possible without support. It goes without saying that there are very often combined or complex factors in the lives of the people that we support. So housing difficulties, DV, substance abuse, financial stress, and low to non-existent informal networks are all circumstances that people may be in and which clearly further impact on mental health. Assistance that empowers people to navigate these issues is what's key. And having said that, there are also many people with psychosocial disability who are well supported and not in crisis situations that we also work with. It's worth noting that the NDIS was based on the social model of disability. The social model really helps us to recognise that there are barriers that make life harder for people with disability. So while the barriers for people with physical disabilities may be easy to spot, no ramp for wheelchair access, a need for braille signage on a door, for example, the barriers for people with mental illness, such as needing to interact with new and unfamiliar people in order to just navigate Centrelink or have a social life, for example, these things are often invisible, but they can have a huge impact on people with psychosocial disabilities' ability to access services, supports, and just simply navigate community life in general. So recovery coaching can really help to reduce the societal barriers that a person may face in order to offer people with psychosocial disability more independence, choice, and control, which is ultimately what the NDIS is all about. So what is lived experience and why is it important? Well, throughout this presentation, you will hear us talk a lot about this idea of lived experience. But what exactly is it and why is it important? Lived experience recovery coaches draw on knowledge and expertise gained from our personal experience of mental health challenges, service use, and recovery. We purposefully use and share personal experiences appropriately and with discretion to support other people to identify their aspirations, make decisions for themselves, exercise greater choice, and assume greater control of their lives. Obviously, lived experience looks different for every person, but an example from my practice is that I might share my experience of going to hospital and what I felt and learned about the process. This includes my awareness that it can be a very disempowering situation, although there are definitely things that you can do and ways of thinking that can help you to have a better experience and make the most of your time there, as well as set in place strategies which might help you to avoid hospital altogether in the future. So what does lived experience provide and why is it important? Well, at One Good Day, we believe that lived experience provides heart. First and foremost, lived experience provides hope. Hope that change is possible and that you can do it. When life hits you hard, it's pretty easy to get stuck in a pattern of thinking in which you can't see a way out. The problems seem too big and too overwhelming to overcome. Lived experience shows that there might just be another possibility, the possibility that you can experience a mental health condition and make the changes needed to live a rich and fulfilling life, whatever that looks like to you. Lived experience can also help a person to operate from a place of compassionate empathy or compassionate distance, which is a bit more than empathy alone. It's really the ability to understand and share in someone else's emotions, but without taking them on as your own emotions or blurring the line between you and another person. It really uses emotional intelligence to effectively respond to a situation, but doesn't necessarily try to fix anything. It rather empowers the other person to step into their own power. It provides accountability. Lived experience can also provide guidance on habits and behaviours that can help people to work towards their goals. If a person's goal is to lead a healthy and emotionally fulfilled life, for example, what strategies have been found to be effective and what support might be useful or empowering? Lived experience can also help us to connect with the other person, while at the same time, obviously enhancing our ability to focus on the other person with a gentle curiosity and without being attached to a specific outcome. I think what we always try to remember, or what we need to remember, is that it's their life, and ultimately change only ever does come from within. Finally, trust. Lived experience, or having lived experience, can help to create a safe space for the other person to share and resolve their struggle. Sharing personal experience may help to create this safe space, and it does that by really inviting this sense of, oh, you've been here too. Ultimately, compassionate empathy really does help to regulate the other person's emotions and ground them into their own inner strength and wisdom. So what else does lived experience provide? It does provide that opportunity to respectfully challenge. Simon talked a little bit about boundaries, etc. It also gives us that chance to step outside of, we're stepping outside from the other person and asking, are there other ways of looking at this that might be useful, or other experiences? It can play a role in building compassionate services that really truly care about well-being. Often this might be through an advocacy role, because ultimately a person with lived experience of mental illness knows what it is like, and they do want to make a difference for the better. Finally, expertise. It is the type of expertise that also can't be learned from a textbook. So the benefits of lived experience definitely lend particularly well to working with a strengths-based approach. Here, the key features are that focus on building trusting and workable relationships, empowering people to take a lead in their own care process. We recognise that people are their own experts in their lives, and our role is to walk alongside and empower, not to advise. We work in collaborative ways on mutually agreed upon goals, and do that by identifying or helping people to identify and draw upon their own personal resources of motivation and hope. A strengths-based practice also has a focus on learning and doing to create sustainable change. Often people with psychosocial disability have had so many experiences that have not gone well, or that have been traumatic, that they no longer believe that they could take the steps necessary to work towards their goal. Strengths-based practice encourages a person to consider the small steps that they are willing to take, as well as the supports that are within and around them to draw on that may help them to get closer to their goal. It also acknowledges the importance of dignity of risk, or the idea that sometimes a person may choose to step outside a comfort zone, take a chance on something, or make a choice that we wouldn't necessarily make. But that's important to their own personal growth, agency, and learning. Here, our role as a recovery coach is to ensure that the person is empowered to make an informed decision and supported to plan ahead. There's an interplay here with the concept of duty of care, and we'll touch on this again later. But when we're talking about a strengths-based approach, or employing a strengths-based approach, the main thing to realise is that in this sense, our duty of care is to really ensure that the person is fully empowered with the information, the support and the confidence that they need to make their own decisions, while also considering risks and possible outcomes. So when working with clients, we spend time with them identifying their strengths. This is a big part of what we do. These can be in a number of different areas. It can be individual strengths. Our insight and individual strengths cover obviously our insight and awareness into ourselves, our illness and what's happening in our lives. Our personal characteristics such as compassion, humour, resilience, attention to detail, and many more things that can fall into that category. It could cover things like financial independence, the motivation and will to achieve or make change, and also things like treatment adherence. Family strengths are also really important, and that can include the fact that a family is supportive towards the client, that the family is financially stable, that they're open and understanding, and that they're willing to also participate in treatment and support their family member in that way. Community strengths might be things such as neighbourhood supports, active community networks, and a general awareness and understanding of mental health. And then treatment and provider strengths are things like active support from the tertiary care treatment setting, wraparound and collaborative approaches that are also empowering and strengths-based. And finally, providers who utilise workers who either have lived experience or have a good understanding of best practice mental health and recovery support. So just to finish up, I really wanted to share with you Tracey's story because I believe that this is a good example of what this approach can look like in practice, definitely in terms of turning the focus from problems into strengths. So when I first met Tracey, we met in a McDonald's cafe because she did not feel safe at home. Tracey was quiet but determined with a shy smile. She apologised as her hands wouldn't stop shaking because she felt so anxious and she had to put her hands on top of each other in order to try to control it. Tracey absolutely loves animals and told me stories about the 10 large spiders that she keeps in tanks and her cat that she had trained to respond to commands and walk on a leash. She also showed me her arms, which were covered from wrist to shoulder with pictures of Australian native animals, and that was to hide all of the scars from previous self-harm. When we dug deeper into Tracey's situation, I learned that Tracey had a long history of trauma and abuse, had no contact with her family, and was living with a friend who had taken her in. Although her friend was the only person she had previously trusted in the world, he had recently acquired a brain injury, and their relationship had become unstable and violent since the accident. Tracey didn't know what to do. The risks of her staying were far too high, but she couldn't afford to rent on her own, did not trust living with other people, or her ability to maintain a tenancy because she'd had a lot of trouble with landlords in the past. She also didn't want to engage with DV services or women's shelters due to previous traumatic incidents with these services. Tracey felt pretty stuck. So I asked her what she really wanted, and she replied, to be free. To be able to live completely independently from other people and not at the whim of the landlord who could kick her out or increase the rent at any time. With a shaking voice, Tracey told me, I want to own my own home. It was a pretty big goal. And I looked at Tracey and I said, okay, so how do we make it happen? We started by exploring Tracey's strengths. It turned out Tracey was really good at managing her money and was proud of the fact that she had completely paid off her car loan ahead of time. When she was feeling well, she was also pretty good at researching and figuring things out. And after that first meeting, Tracey told me that she'd liked the fact that someone believed in her goal. She said she hadn't expected that, and it gave her the motivation and confidence to consider that it could be a real possibility and something that she could work towards. It wasn't smooth sailing. Tracey had a number of episodes of being quite unwell, but we navigated these. And, with Tracey alternatively disengaging and re-engaging with support, but with constant check-ins from myself throughout the whole process, until we got to the meeting where she told me that she'd figured out what she wanted to do. She wanted to make a claim for total and permanent disability through her superannuation, so that she could raise the deposit for her house. So we got to work. We figured out what support letters and evidence was needed and worked on the application when she was well. We had also linked Tracey with an excellent recovery support worker who helped Tracey with accessing appointments and resolving other issues, including temporary housing in the meantime. After 4 months of solid work and periods of being well and unwell, Tracey submitted her TPD application. Just before Christmas at 4:50 p.m. on a Friday, I got a call from Tracey. Her voice was shaking. She told me that her TPD claim had just been approved and she was going to receive $200,000, which she could use as a deposit towards her house. She was free. She cried, I cried, and it was pretty darn amazing. Tracey has now been pre-approved for a loan and is in the process of looking for her ideal property. It's not the end of the story completely. Obviously, having a large sum of money sitting in her bank account was pretty unnerving for Tracey. And she has been worried about the possible outcomes when she is unwell and tempted to spontaneously throw it all in and buy a house without fully thinking it through. To help reduce this risk, we supported Tracey to look at a range of options which could help her slow this process down when she was unwell and give her the space and support to ensure that she was making the best decision possible. This included looking at her options for putting a second authority on her bank account, creating a checklist of steps she wanted to have checked off before she puts a deposit on a house, and researching her rights around cooling off periods, etc. All of these things help to ensure that Tracey is protected when her decision-making may be impaired, but still allow her full agency and empowerment as she has created these checks and balances herself. And I think that ultimately that's what a strengths-based approach is all about. Thank you.
All right. I was just going to say welcome back, but you guys never left. So thank you, Farina. I'm going to do the last couple of slides now, and we're going to talk about how trauma informs our practice and how we manage crisis and our clients who are in crisis as well. So to start with, it's important for us to note, I guess, that in one way or another, trauma informs pretty much everything we do here at One Good Day. Whether it's our own personal trauma that we've lived through or that we're in recovery from, or our clients' families and supports, you know, there's a really big network sometimes of trauma that we have to unravel and have to work through. That can be intergenerational trauma, you know, the trauma that comes just from living in a modern society, that societal trauma, or a personal trauma, or you know, a history of abuse that they've often lived through as well. The importance of the impact of that trauma in our practice is huge. We have to make sure that we, as we said before, we lead with an unconditional positive regard. That's the Rogerian stuff that we work with. Some people might do it differently, but we really, that's how we start and finish with these guys a lot. We don't judge them. It's just not our job to. There's enough people in their life who are doing that for them. We try not to judge them. We try just to show up and help them show up. You know, and a lot of the time when these people are really quite traumatized and recovering from significant, sometimes unresolved childhood trauma that's been in their lives for 40, 50 years, it's really important that we don't ignore that, but we also give them a space to dig into that if they want to, or brush over if they want to as well. The importance of lived experience is obviously huge. Now, it's obviously huge because we've banged on about it several times today. And, you know, Farina and Simon mentioned it as well. It is massive in our job because for two reasons. One, it's really important for our clients to be able to see that we have recovered or are recovering from a lot of the times very similar stuff that they've living through or have lived through. You know, and especially on International Women's Day, I think it's worth pointing out that you can't be what you can't see. You know, for a lot of these people, they have to be able to see that we're recovering. Just as it's important for my 12-year-old daughter to be able to see that she could be the Prime Minister or she can be whoever. You know, it's really important that lived experience comes through, and that we're able to guide these people through their recovery in the same sort of way. My experience with lived experience is really important in the way that I conduct my practice, and hopefully how I help my clients as well. I'm someone who lives with anxiety and depression. Sometimes that depression is so marked that I can't get out of bed. Sometimes it's not profound at all. The anxiety is the same. You know, I live with complex PTSD that arose from some pretty complex and significant trauma as a child, some abuse and violence that I lived through. And for a long time in my life, I covered that up and medicated that with drugs and alcohol to the point where I lived in active addiction for a few years as well. And actually survived a couple of attempts at suicide as well. So it's important that I share as much of that as is appropriate at the time or at different times with different clients. Farina mentioned, and it's really important to mention, that our sense of boundary is really good at One Good Day, and it has to be really good. The discretion that we share our lived experience has to be really good. because you can't, you have to, sometimes this stuff can trigger people into thinking similar thoughts. Sometimes it can trigger them into not accepting who you are or not trusting who you are. So that's something that we're actually really good at, and we concentrate really hard on, is to be able to, monitor how much we share of our own lived experience and how strongly we hold those boundaries as well. The second part that's important for my practice and lived experience is sometimes we have to give these guys a bit of a kick up the bum, and we have to remind them that their goals was this, this, and this. Their goals, not ours, theirs. And Lisa talked about the recovery action plan, and why that's so important is we can refer them back to their own words. Say, well, this is the stuff you wanted to do. This is the stuff you said you wouldn't do. This is the stuff you said you would do. And for someone to have lived experience and a similar lived experience to them, it comes, that bum kicking sometimes comes a lot more gently and a lot more sort of profoundly than it would if somebody hadn't lived through that stuff and was just telling them what they thought they should do with their life. How we manage crisis is obviously really important too. We're not a crisis service. There's plenty of crisis services, and a lot of them do a really good job in this country. So there's no need for us to be another one of those, although we are a service that provides support to people who are prone to crisis. A lot of our clients talk to us about how chaotic their life is at different points. And unfortunately, quite a few of our clients talk to us about this suicidal ideation as well, some of which have significant plans in place, some of which it's a passing thought. And it's really important for us that we manage that through, firstly, both connection with our clients and a communication level with our clients where they trust us. It's really important that somebody can say, this is what I think. This is what I'm thinking about. These are the thoughts I'm having, without worrying whether we're going to judge them or go off the rails or call everyone they know, or how we're going to react. So that communication and that connection is really important. The rapport and the trust that they have with us is really important too. The communication, sometimes it's as simple as saying, are you safe? Are you safe right now? And they'll say yes or no. That's the thing about dealing with people. And a lot of you guys have done sort of that mental health first aid stuff, that suicide training, and you'll know that a lot of it, you just have to ask the question. It's just starting the conversation, and asking that question isn't going to, and there's lots and lots of research on this, that asking that question isn't likely to trigger someone into taking that action. They're either going to or they're not. But asking that question, are you safe, can often just start the conversation that they're dying to have. And if they say they're not, then we go on. The next question is, well, do you have a plan? And we work through those things. But often they'll say, yeah, I am. I'm safe. I feel pretty crappy today, or I've been feeling down, or I'm whatever, but right now I'm safe. And so that communication and the connection is really, really important. The next phase of that then is understanding and assistance, right? The understanding is just for us to be able to go, okay, that sounds like it's hard, tell me more about it, or do you have a plan in place, or whatever it might be, whichever way we kind of deal with that in the moment. That understanding is really important. If we come at it from a place of just not having that understanding, and people don't have to be a suicide survivor to understand suicidal ideation, but it's really important that we provide that understanding. And then the assistance, including follow-up, is really important. So for recovery coaches, because we work with these guys really intensely and really for quite a long time for the duration of their plan, we can follow things up. We can provide that assistance and say, remember last month when you were feeling this? Remember 5 months when you were feeling this? How are you feeling now in relation to that, in reflection to that? And that can often be a really, really good way to cut through a crisis situation. Then the other thing we talk about, and we work, our practice is guided very much on, is the stages of change. Is that how are people, meeting people where they are. So the type of counselling that we provide in the coaching and mentoring and coaching that we do is based very much around motivational interviewing. And a big part of that is these stages of change, right? So the first part is pre-contemplation. It's where they don't even know, they're not even really aware that they need help at the moment, or they want to find help. They don't know that help's available even, or who might provide that help. And that's an important stage for us, because obviously this is part of that. The way that we promote ourselves, the way that you can refer to us, the way that we promote psychosocial recovery coaching and mental health support in general is really important in that. So that's the pre-contemplation. Then they go through the contemplation stage where they start to think about, okay, well, I think I'm feeling this. I think that I might need help from this. I still don't know maybe what sort of help I need or what sort of help is available, but I know that I need it. And then right through to preparation where they might, actually start to think about taking action and start to think about what they can do to be better, to start being better, to start feeling better. Through the next stage then is the action and maintenance stage. That's really where we become involved. So the action is these people either from a referral from guys like you or other network providers or other referrers, or even just Google searches sometimes. They come to us and they speak to our dedicated Intag team. The Intag team starts to take their details and works through to us as the senior team to be able to allocate them a recovery coach and work through it. So sometimes the people who come to us are pre-planned. They haven't got a plan in place yet, and we can support them with that. Often though, they have a brand new plan, say, and maybe a brand new support coordinator, maybe one of you guys watching this today. And that's where that's our stage where we really step in and start to work with these people, get them on board and start to talk about their goals, start a recovery action plan, and often start their recovery. And then a really important phase for us that we talk about a lot is the lapse phase, is the little slip ups, is the backward step. And for us, we try not to talk about relapse. Relapse is a very limiting word. It's a really stigmatizing word, where lapse, feels just a little bit less sort of serious. And as somebody who's been through rehab a couple of times and is in recovery, I know what it's like to have that relapse thing hanging around your neck. So we talk a lot about lapse and what can happen tomorrow if we start again. The fact that we don't go back to where we were, we just go back to where we are today, is a really important factor that we work with a lot of our clients on. And then hopefully the reduction of support and the exit. Our goal, our overarching goal as a business is to put ourselves out of business with each of these guys. We don't want to be their support forever. We don't want them to be supported forever. And so a lot of our recovery action plans work towards goals of autonomy, of self-empowerment, of recovery, in whatever that looks like for them. And really importantly, what it looks like for them, not us. So that reduction of support is really important, and the exit from service. And then the last two things is kind of, for me, is the most important part that informs my practice. The first thing is that we have to meet these people where they are. There's a lot of people, and you guys will know this through your own practice, there's a lot of people telling these guys how they should live their life and the mistakes that they've made and the mistakes they keep making, and they can't stop being reminded of this stuff. It's really important that we don't do that, that we meet the people where they are. We work towards recovery for these guys via their goals, not ours. The recovery action plan that Lisa's talked about before is based on their goals, not ours. And that's a really important thing for somebody who is perhaps living in active addiction, perhaps living in, an acute psychotic state. It's very, very important that we don't go, now listen, what you need to do is this, this, and this. What we say is, well, what do you want? How can we support you? What's your goal? And then we'll work towards that using our combination of lived or learned experience, as well as service provision and clever professionals like you guys as well. It's really important that, and I think that informs all of our practice here at One Good Day, that we meet these people where they are. And then the last thing is that we are always trying to get these guys to the next stage. The next stage isn't cure, isn't recovery, complete recovery, isn't, everything else. The next stage for some people is, I want to wake up tomorrow morning. I want to get out of bed tomorrow morning. I want to have a shower. I want to walk outside. For a lot of these people, these goals might seem to you and I very simple and very understated things, but for a lot of these guys, those goals are huge. A lot of my guys, to be able to leave the house, get in the shower, put some clothes on, walk outside the door is a really daunting experience. So for us, we need to get to the next stage, and the next stage is just one good day. And then once we have one good day, we can string together another and another, and it might turn into one good week to one good month. And then we might have a little lapse, stuff something up and have to get back on track, but that's where we are. We're called One Good Day because of that, because we're not trying to aim for perfection. We're trying to aim for one good day. I know that in my own life, I try to get to 6 a.m. every day, the next day. If I can do that, then I can go again. And if I can do that, I can go again. If I string one good day together with another, that's 2 good days. but for us, it's really important that we stress to these guys, and these guys work towards goals that are very much oriented around one more good day. So that's, I know we've given you just a tiny little bit of information today, but that's a big dump of all of our kind of knowledge from the four of us. I'd really like to thank you for sticking with us and for seeing this through. Firstly, to even attend. I know how hard it is and how busy you guys must be, so thank you for that. But also, just to be able to sit in a space where we talk about stuff that's hard. A lot of this stuff is hard to talk about for people and hard to listen to. So yeah, we're really appreciative of that. And I know the girls have got some questions, or I'm assuming the girls have got some questions to ask us. So I'm going to hand back to them, and I'll stick around and see if I can answer a few.
Great, thank you so much, Nick, and to the team. That's been such an insightful presentation, and we have had quite a few questions come through. So we just wanted to jump on those while we still have time left. So one of the first questions that we just had come through was, can you please spend some time elaborating on the ways in which support coordinators and recovery coaches can work collaboratively and capitalise on their distinctive roles?
We, as Lisa said, quite often we see clients with both, probably less so now, but it's really important that the client has that choice of control. So we work from the point of view of what's in the plan is in the plan. Sometimes that can be split, sometimes it can be worked through. As Farina said before, where the funding is specifically for recovery coaching or specifically for support coordination, we tend to stick to that. Otherwise, we tend to focus on what the client's choice is, what the client's control over that is, what their best needs are, and how we might help them. We're really in the business of getting these people to one more good day, and whether that happens with us in conjunction with support coordination, whether that happens with us doing some support coordination, or however it works, we're really open to anything like that. I know that's a really big question. I hope I've answered that properly, but for you guys, but yeah, that's where we sit philosophically with that.
Thank you. Another question we had was just what registration group is used for recovery coaching in the NDIS?
Yeah, it's the same. It's I didn't know the answer to that, so I just got a cue from my boss. It's the same as support coordination. It's the same sort of governing bodies and the same regulatory stuff that we're under, both of us. So.
Thanks.
I know you touched on this in the presentation, but just in case anyone missed it, the qualifications required for a recovery coach? Yeah, so the NDIS suggests that we have Cert 3 or Cert 4 in community support, in peer work support. I'm just looking at Simon because that was his bit, and he's the mental health peer work and mental health, and also training in disciplines that might also benefit from it. So in our team, we've got a wide range of stuff that goes right from diplomas in and Cert 4s in different things, right through to psychology degrees and further on disability services and other things, alcohol and drug stuff as well. We have a really wide range of it. There's no set, okay, you've got to have this and this, but at One Good Day, we really focus on those minimum requirements plus a lived or learned experience of a mental ill health as well. Thank you.
Liz Symes had the following question. She said, this service is not available in our area and we are seeing more and more plans come through with this service funded. As a provider, we would like to start offering this service. Other than registration and appropriately qualified staff, are there any other factors we need to consider in regard to NDIS processes? It's difficult to find guidelines for the service.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of that first, we work in regional, mostly the urban centres, so Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, plus those states as well. And we also have clients from different parts of Australia that we work with remotely through telehealth, through either phone or on Zoom like this. So that's the first thing, is that we can help. If for that person who asked that question, we can actually either help within our own team or we might be able to refer someone locally as well. So I'd really support you to contact us directly, and we might be able to help you out with that. In terms of you getting that stuff done yourself as well, I mean, that's another option also. I think that you will see it more and more and more in people's plans now. which is kind of unfortunate and kind of great as well that these people are getting this support. But yeah, if you live in a regional area or an area where you think we might not service face-to-face, and you'd be surprised how far we do travel and service, please get in touch with us and we can either see if we can handle it in-house through telehealth, or maybe we can find someone, we can refer people. We've got a really good network of people in this space as well. So we might be able to help you out personally as well there as well.
Great options, thank you. And what about, someone asked about the templates, or see a template of the RAP. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a RAP that we worked out, that we built in-house. We can certainly show you what we do in that way, just at a high level thing. Again, I'd support you to get in touch with us, either me directly or Lisa or somebody else on the team that you've seen today, and we can send out that template. It's not, you know, we're not the Oracle, but it's just the way that we work. And we've found that it's in its different iteration to how it started now. So as we've gone along through our own business life, it's gotten better and better and better. So where we are now, we think it's a really good template. We can certainly share how that works, and I just encourage you to contact us directly and we can help you out with that.
Great, thank you. We will definitely be sharing your details after this, so I'm sure you'll have a few emails come through. Would you suggest that most recovery coaches should be using RAP?
I would suggest that if you work at One Good Day, you should. I really don't. I don't know how other recovery, and look, all recovery coaches work differently, and that's great. But we've found that in our practice, that works best. That it gives the client choice and control over their future. That it gives us the option, again, as I said before, sometimes to give them a little kick up the bum if they're not doing what they said they were going to do. And it's a proprietary thing that we use across all of our clients and all of our recovery coaches now.
Okay.
Thanks. So another question we've had, which I think we partly covered, is there is a bit of a crossover between support coordination and recovery coaching. And so someone's asked, is it possible for a support coordinator with the qualifications, the right qualifications to play the role of a recovery coach?
Absolutely. But again, it's if they're going to do both of those things, sometimes there is a bit of not a conflict, but it just blurs those lines between somebody who can set stuff up for them and spend their money and spend their plan, and somebody who is paid by their plan. For that reason, that's why we work in recovery coaching only, primarily. But that said, we actually have people working as recovery coaches who've come from support coordination. And I personally know other people who work in recovery coaching outside of our business who've come from that too, because they have the relevant qualifications or the lived and learned experience. So to answer your question, yes, you could do that. We suggest that it's either one or the other, only because there's no blurred lines then with service provision and being paid for the service, or the people paying for it.
Any views on why they get paid less than support coordinators?
No, but if you could do something about that, that'd be great.
Thank you.
If you had to call the emergency services for someone that is suicidal, do they feel that trust has been broken?
I tell you, I can tell you what I personally do. So I tell people that my clients, that everything that we talk about and everything we work towards is in confidentiality, is confidential between us, unless their health and welfare, or the health and welfare and safety of someone else, is compromised. So if I speak to a client who expresses some suicidal ideation, I think the next step through that first aid process is to call an ambulance, which I presume is or the police, I presume an ambulance. Then that's something that we already have in place between me and the client. That if you're feeling this way, this is what I'm going to do. I don't feel like that's a breach of that trust, because we do work with their best intentions in mind. Obviously, I would hope that my own counselling skills and our coaching and counselling skills in-house is enough to either get to the space where they do need an ambulance, or they get to the space where we can talk through other things. And that's really a part of the way that we triage people through crisis. So to answer your question, I don't think it's part of it. I don't think it's breach of trust, because it would be something that I speak to them about. And also, I don't tell the whole world about that. That confidentiality and that interpersonal relationship between us is held.
Thank you. And then another one was referring to Nick's story. Beautiful. And they say, it seems to me the recovery coach can assist participants with psychosocial disability like a counsellor. Is that right? And if so, if the participant keeps having sessions with the psychologist, can the participant feel confused to open up to one or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can tell you from my own personal space, I have a degree and qualifications in counselling. Other people don't, right? So the way that I conduct my practice with my clients is a bit counselling heavy, I guess, whereas other people might be less so. So and further to that, if they're covered, if they're under the care of a psychiatrist or a psychologist or another therapist in some way, then I work in conjunction with that in a multidisciplinary approach. I don't go off on my own and think, oh, I know what's best for these people if other people have already been working with them. So the confusion is lessened through that. There's quite a few of my clients who have a psychologist who I speak to an email with every week or every 2 weeks about them. And they might say, on Friday, I spoke to John about this, and this. Could you follow up on that? And that's the way that I do it. But that's the way how I do it. I really want to stress that we all work really differently in that space. I'm counselling heavy because that's my background. Other people might be less so. But we always work, regardless of our experience. We always work as part of a network of professionals helping these people towards better health. Always.
So we've had a few questions about time management and is it a 24/7 role? And when a person is in crisis, how do you kind of handle working alongside that?
Yep, it's not a 24/7 role, thank goodness. And none of us work in that space. And it's really about boundaries, which I'll come back to in a sec. But just from a infrastructure point of view, from a business point of view, our intake line is manned between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Outside of that, we have a referral system in place, but we will get back to people, as soon as we can. If somebody is in crisis and it's outside of our business hours, or even if I'm with another client or I'm at some training thing or I'm, unavailable to them, then we stress to them that their options are the myriad of crisis support lines in place already in this country. So we are not a crisis service. We are a service who works with people who are prone to crisis. And that's a really kind of important distinction that we make. I'm sorry, does that answer that question? I don't know if I answered that or not.
Yeah, I think it was just about the boundaries and
yeah, oh sorry, I was going to go back to that. That's okay. Thank you. That's the really important part, is that our clients know that if they ring at 7:30 at night, if they ring at 11:30 p.m, they're not going to speak to us. They can leave a message, they can leave 100 messages and I'll get back to them the next day, but we don't work 24/7. And a big part of that is because their recovery is based on their strengths. And if we can build their capacity and build their asset for strength by not answering them every single time they ring or message or text us at 10 o'clock at night, then they're taking one more step towards empowering themselves and building their own capacity.
And then another question is just, what's the best way to get support coordination recovery coaching onto an NDIS plan?
Well, the best way is if they have a plan in place, then obviously there's channels to work through with the NDIA directly as to whether there might be a review in place or whatever it is. A lot of our clients come to us pre-plan, so we might support people who are working through that initial phase of filling in the whole document at the start to get on the plan. We actually there's one form that we use called the proof of psychosocial disability. I'm just looking at Farina because she's the expert. Evidence of psychosocial disability form, sorry. And we can provide that for you guys too. I mean, you could just Google it, but we have that too. And we find that actually tips the balance quite often in favor of being able to get on a plan. Getting psychosocial recovery coaching included in a plan. That said, as we go through since July 2020, when this first sort of became a thing, we're seeing more and more people come through with psychosocial recovery coaching in place in a plan if they have the psychosocial disability that fits best from that.
Thank you. Do you consider recovery coaches as level 4 workers, or is that only for support coordinators?
Yep, I'll just get Simon to answer that.
Okay.
Sorry, do you mind repeating that last question for me, please?
Sure, Simon. Do you consider recovery coaches as level 4 workers, or is that just for support coordinators?
No, we don't. We mirror up our recovery coaching, typically similar to support coordination, and we try and engage with support workers, mental health support workers, peer workers of that kind through other agencies, and we sort of guide them to provide the supports that we recommend to that particular client.
Another question is that you've spoken a lot about lived experience, and of course that's really important. And I'm just wondering, what about recovery coaches that have only got this study? Can they still provide adequate support?
Of course. And obviously we find the combination of lived and learned to be most valuable, but we have a number of recovery coaches and plenty of people under our umbrella that do have a lot of learnt experience, and they provide just as good recovery coaching as those of our recovery coaches with lived experience. But yeah, I guess the combination is great, but either also works really well as well.
And what reports do NDIS request from you?
Yeah, so we have to submit we normally submit a 3-month review report. We also do a 9-month review, and leading up to the client's plan review, we gather information, we gather different reports from different clinicians and therapists, and we submit that prior to their plan review. Leading up to it.
Do you also work with support workers on a triage approach as far as the care is concerned?
Yeah, we definitely do. A lot of our clients that come to us that have similar things to what every other client has. So we try to engage them with support workers, typically in the psychosocial recovery space. We try and engage them with mental health support workers. It just depends on the client. It's all individual, but we engage them with support workers, mental health support workers, peer workers, psychologists. Various channels of support.
I think there's just some comments in here. Would love to share this with my team? Can I get a copy of the webinar? Yeah, we will definitely be sharing our resources from after this session, so you'll receive those in the next couple of weeks. And please, can you share your referral form? So we'll be sharing One Good Day's details as well, with their contacts and referral details as well. So we're more than happy to do that.
We also, sorry to interrupt you. We also, if you guys are looking to gather more information about One Good Day and access our referral form, you can also just jump online. Super easy. It's just on our homepage there. You can scroll down and fill out a referral online.
onegoodday.com.au, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah, great. And do you just use the support coordinator template or make your own?
Not too sure. Well, sorry, do you mind repeating the question again?
Yeah, the question just says, do you just use the support coordinator template or make your own?
No, we typically use the generic one.
Any other questions you can see there, Carol?
Just a question: if the recovery coaching is not funded in the plan, can it be taken from core? No. It
can be taken from support coordination, or a plan review can be done to include recovery coaching in a participant's plan. But no, it cannot be taken from core.
And to get it included in the plan, is mental health diagnosis required?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, I think that's where we're going to wrap up the questions, everyone. So if anything else comes up, please feel free to either reach out to your contacts at NDSP or Mabel or One Good Day as well. And we just really want to thank One Good Day for coming together for this session. We really appreciate it. And I hope you definitely got a lot out of it. So thank you to Lisa, Simon, Farina and Nick for sharing your stories and your experience. Thank you to our interpreters for joining us today as well, and for you all for taking the time to join us. So yeah, I really hope you found it a valuable session, and we will again be sending out the recording and our follow-up resources from this session. So you should receive those in the next few weeks while we pull those together for you. But what we will be sending out straight after this is a Survey Monkey for your feedback. So you should receive that within the next 15 minutes or so. And that Survey Monkey is about your feedback on this session, but we will also ask you what you would love to hear from next. So as Mirella said at the beginning of the session, we run these quarterly, and the next one will be our third loop session, and we would love to be able to see what topics are really valuable to you and pull that together for you. So definitely send us your feedback. And yeah, finally, on behalf of NDSP and Mabel, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at our next session, and that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you again to everyone for coming. Thank you.